Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachahakwadash, and double honors to the apostles and elders at Great Millstone. Peace and salutation to the elect. All right. So I wanted to go into something. As brothers have saw this video where Esau's claiming to be a scapegoat, in which the scapegoat in the scriptures was ultimately a innocent goat, in which blame and all of the sins as an atonement for the nation of Israel were placed on this particular goat. And Esau used that analogy for himself as if he's this innocent, you know, character whose forefathers have not wreaked havoc and destroyed not only physically, but spiritually, all right, mentally, health wise, physically, everything. He's destroyed many, many nations. He's destroyed, all right, ecosystems. He's destroyed family. He's destroyed true values. Okay. And all he could say is, all right, well, we did some bad and the good outweighs the bad in a sense. And they hide this racism and wickedness under a term called science. And for many years, I wasn't interested in understanding the mind of Esau Edom. Okay, when I came into the truth, to me it was, he's just the devil, But I think it's important that brothers have a basic understanding of how this man operates mentally, because it only coincides with what the Bible says about him, that he is the one whose coming is after the working of Satan with all signs and power and lying wonders. That's in the book of Second Thessalonians, I believe, the second chapter. The man of sin is being revealed, okay? And that is a nation in the scriptures known as the nation of Edom, Esau Edom. And when you get into his mind frame and what he's teaching his children and this science and all of these things that you were going to school, that you've grown up seeing all of these various Edomites reading about, Darwin, reading about, all of these particular so-called philosophers and anthropologists and, so-called great men who, this is who we look to for the answers, on why society is the way it is, why people are the way they are, sociology, deeming people, beast and, by this whole IQ. And it's a lot of conjecture. And in listening to it, you can get lost because he pulls a lot of statistics and things out of his ass. But the things that this guy is talking about in this video, all right, are ultimately their findings and their so-called science. This is why Esau Edom loves to throw out this term science. You can't argue the facts of science. So what you're going to find out, and when you study Esau Edom, is that this rhetoric that he spews is based upon a bunch of demonic, racist, so-called anthropologists, sociologists, all right, and their theories, all right, in which they hijack themselves up to this superior race of people, and everyone under them, especially you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, of course, the other nations, Japhet. He did harm to a lot of people with this whole Darwinism, high IQ, low IQ theory. People were sterilized. People were destroyed. All right, because of these things. All right, now, this guy says something in this video. All right, I don't want to talk too much. This guy says something in this video that I want to get, all right, and show you, and we're going to look up exactly what he said and show you that these devils are on a whole nother level of wickedness, all right, and you're going to hear a lot of conjecture, and this, in their eyes, this is science. These are facts. This is why the average Edomite can just pull, all right, a fact out of his ass, all right, and say this is that, or this percentage of that, or your IQ, is this and that. Okay. And it's all bullshit, man. Okay. And we're going to give you an example because the people who have the so called highest IQs, okay, these are the biggest pedophiles. Okay. These are the biggest destroyers of humanity. Okay. They're the biggest homosexuals. They pass laws, all right, that are completely detrimental to the people in the society. Okay. And so forth. Okay. Like you have this high IQ, but you don't know that a child, all right, a 2 year old child can't have an orgasm. However, you'll think that that sounds crazy. However, there is Edomite scientist, anthropologist, all right, who will tell you otherwise. And what will they offer you? Statistics based on their own wickedness. And we're going to show you this dealing with Alfred Kinsey before we deal with this guy. I may make it two parts. I'm going to read this scripture real quick. Isaiah 47:10. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness. Thou hast said, none seeth me. See, for years, secrecy and hiding behind this term of being white has really helped the so-called white man, because you look at even our people, you know, how, let's look at this Nipsey uh, Hustle, I believe that's his name, situation. You know, like they supposedly found the killer, and already two members of the so-called killer's family are murdered. You know, there's hits being put out, you know, on members of his family. But when it comes to the so-called white man shooting you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans up and down the street, that approach is never taken. Now, I'm not advocating for you to go, all right, and shoot up so-called white people and all of that. What I'm saying is there's a mental blockage of rebellion against this people. You can have Israelites or people who are Israelites that are actually, they follow the religion of Christianity, but they're so-called Negro, Latino, Native American. This one guy, Power of God, he can sit there and show you everything wrong with this world. But when it comes to calling out the actual people who are at the forefront of all of these problems, there comes a blockage. Oh, that's racist. You can't do that. Why is that? Well, when he, in 1681, when he put the term white on himself, okay, that was a psychological, all right, move, which is actually witchcraft. Okay? You notice nobody ever really goes hard on Esau Edom with all of the facts and the crimes and the pedophilia and the money schemes and the college schemes, getting their children, all of these things that are being found out on them. You're not really seeing people. All right, well, due to prophecy, you are, but over the years, you haven't really, so-called Negroes. Okay, we're thugs. We're deadbeat dads. So-called Mexicans. They're bottom feeders. They'll work for 2 cents an hour and do the best job. Bottom feeders. The so-called Jamaicans, they'll steal from you. They're hustlers. The Levites are very aggressive. The so-called Haitians, they're aggressive. They're mean. They're poverty-stricken. They're poor. They're dumb. They hate each other. All of these things have been placed upon our people. When it comes to this so-called white man, there isn't really anything negative that has stuck to this man and become associated with him, even though he's at the forefront of everything negative. He is not known as a pedophile. Okay, that stigma doesn't stick with him, though everywhere you look, you have so-called white men committing pedophilia and women. Okay, and that's just one of the things that this man, drug dealer, he isn't known as a drug dealer, but he has the psych med industry. He has CVS on every corner. But the real drug dealer in the eyes of the world are so-called Negroes, okay, in the tribes. Now, this color white is a psychological mindfuck, okay? It says the color white is color, all right, at its most complete and pure and color perfection. You see that? The psychological meaning of white is purity, innocence, wholeness, and completion. So people have yet to really, rebel against this man, and it's just now people are just now starting to call him out, because of prophecy. But overall, people really look at this man as complete. Look at Alton Johnson. Now we have a depiction of the Messiah saying that he looks like Alton, that he looks like, all right, if he walked the streets today, he would be called a so-called Negro. He would be hated and talked down upon. All right. Now, what does Alton do? He takes that image, he puts bubble eyes on it, he makes a complete mockery of it, says that we're worshiping a graven image, which is a complete lie, and all of these things. However, Alton has never made a true, all right, a stance against the so-called white image of Jesus, which has been forced on many nations in a form of white supremacy. All right. And Christianity is nothing but white supremacy. But you don't see Alton, you don't see Christians really making a stance against the so-called Jew, who, by the way, on this grand scheme of high IQ madness, the so-called Jew is the one with the highest IQ. But look how he runs the world. But that's another, we'll get that in a minute. It says, in color psychology, white is the color of new beginnings, the wiping of a slate, of wiping the slate clean, so to speak. So people always forgive him. All right. It is blank. It is the blank canvas waiting to be written on. While white isn't stimulating to the senses, it opens the way for creation of anything the mind can conceive. Okay. And we've seen various tests that they do with children and people. And due to white supremacy and science, they are looked at as innocent and pure and loving. But you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are looked at as the problem of the planet Earth. You're looked at as a dummy. You are subhuman. You aren't even human. Matter of fact, you're 3/5 of a human being. And when you do the study, when you look into science, you actually made it with monkeys, and you're the closest thing. You're the missing link in the evolution process of linking man to monkeys. You see that? And we'll show you all of that. Okay, and this man is out of his damn mind. Okay? Yep, it is interesting to know. Racism. Okay? It had perverted thee, and thou hast said in thine heart, I am. Okay? Now, when Moses spoke, all right, when the Most High spoke to Moses through his word, all right, when Moses was like, well, who are you? He said, I am that I am. Then he said, moreover, tell the children of Israel that Yahweh hath sent you. But Esau himself says that I am. Okay, so we don't need to look to the scriptures to see who nations are. We don't need to look to the true living power to learn how to treat the earth. We don't need to look to the creator for institutions of how to, run a marriage or run a business, or, how, things should go. I am. Okay, you're black. I'm white. He's red. They're yellow. You're brown. And that all came from a man named Carl Linnaeus, which is a demonic man who's an Edomite. It says, and none else besides me. Okay? And see, what's happening now is the man of sin is being revealed. I have made Esau bare. So this is what's coming to this man. All right? It says, therefore evil shall come upon thee. Thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and mischief shall fall upon thee, and thou shalt not be able to put it off. And desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt know. It says, stand now without enchantments. And this white supremacy is a big part of his enchantment. And it has shaped how everyone sees themselves. It has shaped how people think. It has shaped how people have ideas, how people look at things, how people approach situations. It is all based upon white supremacy. And you should try to be like him. However, according to the statistics, you just can't do it. You just can't. You know, we are genetically dominant, you know, and you know, more superior than you. And, you know, yeah, you try. However, based upon your race and, you know, the statistics and the findings, you're just never going to get to where we are. You know, the bell curve and all of these different things, which that devil said. So we're going to get that. Okay, it says, stand now with thine enchantments and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so, thou shalt be able to profit. If so, be thou mayest prevail. See, Esau has prevailed through lies, through things that don't even make sense, things that aren't even there, things that aren't even real. And he's got far with these things. Now we'll go back to that. Okay, this is Psalms 36 and 1. All right, David, the servant of the Lord, the transgressions of the wicked saith within mine heart, there is no fear of God before his eyes. For he flattereth himself in his own eyes until his iniquity be found to be hateful. And he flattereth himself in his own eyes. Let's look up this word flattereth. Chalak, okay? To divide, to share, to plunder, to apport, to assign, okay? Impart, to divide oneself, to scatter, to be deceitful, to be slippery, to be smooth. And he talks with such a soft voice, using all of these eloquent words, and you know, and you look at him and say, this is God. He's right. But when you look at his actions, when you look at how he controls the earth, when you look at how he deals with children and how he, you know, sets, you know, thought and forces these particular, he is a complete maniac. Okay? And we're going to show you until his iniquity be found to be hateful. And that's what's happening. 1 second. And his iniquity is being found to be hateful. The words of his mouth, verse 3, are iniquity and deceit. He have left off to be wise and to do good. Okay? And his scientists, his anthropologists, his sociologists, his philosophers, okay, they have all left off to do good and to be wise and created their own wisdom, which is based on witchcraft. And we're going to show you an example of that dealing with Alfred Kinsey. Okay, you want to understand and know why pedophilia, okay, you know, rape, robbery, and murder, you know, all of this freakism are pretty much good to go amongst so-called white people. They're not really condemned. Well, look no further than Alfred Kinsey, man. Okay, a demon whom at one point was known as the father of science, one of the fathers of science. So let's go ahead and read how this man and his wine and his philosophy and his data, okay, shaped what we know today as sex and perversion.
Against Playboy. So how did we get here to where we're at today? Because I don't think pornography has always been such an epidemic cancer within our society like it is today.
No, not at all. We were, up to the end of the Second World War, a conservative Judeo-Christian nation. The turning point for all that was Dr. Alfred Kinsey, his book, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, 1948. He was
1948. Now, what else happened in 1948? Okay, the so-called Jew was set up in the land of Israel as the chosen people of the Lord, in which that night they were bombed by Egypt, showing you those aren't the true children of the Lord. The Most High is bad. But at that same time that was happening, over here in America, all right, which is linked with Israel, this was happening.
He's the father of the sexual revolution, and therefore the father of everything that has come from that. And certainly one of the key things was pornography.
Dr. Alfred Kinsey ushered the destruction of our nation's moral code with his books, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male and Sexual Behavior in the Human Female, known as the Kinsey Reports.
And this book is highly heralded amongst so-called white people. They do these things secretly and teach them to their children and, so forth. But this is what they do. Okay, this is what they believe in. They're philosophers, they're scientists, based on their data and their findings, which when you hear this man's data and findings and what he was actually doing, you're going to lose it. Watch this, brothers and sisters. This nigga is crazy.
The world recognized him as the leading scientific expert on human sexuality. The reports claim that humans were sexual from birth, and that what we deemed as immoral sexual behavior was actually normal, thus making it moral.
So this is why you see a lot of Edomite men get away, all right, especially the higher up, rich elite, get away with all of these foul acts with children. Because really, according to their science, children enjoy being tortured and raped based upon this man's findings and his data and his science. And what they did with sex, they did with race. And just watch this perversion.
Once a biologist who studied gall wasp, Kinsey's obsession with sexuality led him to found the Kinsey Institute for Sex Research at Indiana State University.
How was he able to do this at a prolific college? Why? Because all of these colleges, all right, are funded and established upon white supremacy. So they have platforms to where they can just do all sorts of madness and wickedness, and nobody knows about it. You just wait till all of what this man has done comes out. We only know the tip of the iceberg, but the internet is exposing this man.
What people to this day are not aware of were the methods he used to collect his data.
And I looked at the graphs that he provided, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34 tables. And I said, wait a minute, that's a 2-month-old baby. How does he know a 2-month-old baby did or did not have an orgasm?
See, you hear that? So he would torture children. He would bring children in. The parents of these children would be there as well, get paid to, sacrifice their children off to this institution for their science and research, because that's what these Edomites do. Right? Hollywood is a high playing ground for that, but that's another lesson for another time. And he would torture these children, bring other doctors and scientists in to torture and rape the children. And from this finding and from this data, the child had 36 orgasms. This is a 2-month-old baby. This child had orgasm. This child enjoyed this. So we can't deem this a wicked act, because how can we put an age limit on when a child is to enjoy sex? And this is why all of this freakism is in your schools today, to this day.
And then table 34, a 4-year-old child, 26 orgasms in 24 hours. That's an around-the-clock experiment.
Wow, that's torture.
That's torture, you bet. He also actually employed bona fide pedophiles to do what they did to children for his so-called data.
Kinsey wanted to prove that we are sexual from birth, so it wasn't surprising that he drew his data from pedophiles, rapists, and murderers. They were the perfect sample because obviously a rapist pedophile will have a skewed perspective on sexuality, convincing himself that his victim finds pleasure in the act of being raped. Using a stopwatch and a ledger, they recorded their sexual experiments, systematically molesting thousands of young children.
These are males and females that are Edomites. And they would stand there with the clicker. Oh, he had a convulsion. Oh, he jumped. Oh, he screamed. That's an orgasm. That's an orgasm. Oh, he's enjoying this. And they would stand there with the clicker and click how many times the child has an orgasm. Now, you as a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old, you bust 1 or 2 nuts and you're done. But no, with Kinsey, the child, they can keep on coming. So we're not wrong in having sex with them. And this is how these people operate. This is why they go around the earth doing this. because they're justified by their own data, by their own science, which is witchcraft, which is wine. And this is being spread all throughout the four corners of the earth, man. And nobody has anything to say. Why? Because the people who these acts are associated with are white. Witchcraft. They're white. So, ultimately, they always do that. They've been doing that. You bring these things up. Oh, they've been doing that. Ooh, I seen that one. Corey Feldman he came out. The guy from the Goonies, different strokes. All of these accusations and people coming out on what's going on in Hollywood and what's going on what these so-called Jews are doing. And you don't really see no big stance against that. Why? Because there's a mental block there. White is right. Because based on the statistics, nigga, you're the problem. You're the dummy. I have an IQ of 180. And the people with the highest IQs, this is what they do. This is what they justify. Right? A damn test doesn't, justify madness like this, man. And my intelligence isn't based on your goddamn test, man. Because who you are is the basest man on the planet Earth. So anything that you come with, all right, is witchcraft, and it has nothing to do with what reality is. So I'm throwing it away. And that's what you Israelites need to do, man. Throw this man away. Boycott Esau Edom. He's the problem. Let's listen to some more of this damn decrepit freak, man. Now, is he in hell? Is he in hell? Is this man in hell? That's why they call that shooter, all right, forget where he was, that mass shooter who just shot up like 58 Muslim at that mosque. That's why he was called an angelic child who grew up to be a right-wing, left-wing nut. Because they're right.
The guise of science. This research was compiled in his books, sexual experiments, systematically molesting thousands of young children under the guise of science. This research was compiled in his books, Sexual Behavior of the Human Male and Sexual Behavior in the Human Female.
He said I had 196 pre-adolescents under 12, and he broke them up into 6 categories. And fainting, convulsions, screaming, writhing, striking what he called their partner, that's somebody who's raping them, okay? And they were trying to get away, but he said they enjoyed it. They definitely enjoyed it.
The research in Kinsey's books were partly based on the collection of data and confessions of a Nazi pedophile during World War II, Dr. Fritz von Balusek, who raped hundreds of children. After the war, the Nazi officer was charged and put on trial for the murder of a 10-year-old girl. They found detailed records of von Balusek's heinous sexual acts with children, revealing his correspondence with Kinsey. Dr. Kinsey, who was fully aware of the Nazi officer's atrocities, warned him in his letters to be careful and encouraged him to continue his research. During the trial, the judge said, "I got the impression that you got to the children in order to impress Kinsey and to deliver him material." To his surprise, Balusek...
Why wasn't he burned alive? Why wasn't he hung or beaten or stoned, Why are you talking to him? Because he's white. This is what Edomites do. And they put it out there as if they putting these people in jail like Jerry Sandusky and all. No, they're not putting. These people are somewhere chilling, man. Oh, man.
Beck replied, "Kinsey himself asked me for that."
Now that became the foundation for the sex educational structure that fed itself into what we are teaching our children right now as we sit here and speak.
I venture to suggest that what we are putting into our books on sex education today is based almost fully upon philosophic guess.
So the ways of the scriptures that were being pushed, morals and, because at one point Esau was actually trying to be a Christian, although they were hanging people and doing all sorts of destructive acts around the earth. They actually tried to have some, way about themselves, Women didn't smoke cigarettes. Women didn't expose themselves. Women weren't allowed to expose themselves. The swimsuits were very modern. Women didn't walk around as they walked around. But Kinsey came and said that's old. That worked for those times. Now, children, can come 84 times, according to what I've learned. So, hey, throw that old way away and let's get freaky. And that's what's happened since then. And this is the core of what we learned and what our children are learning today. But we're the problem.
And of course, it was the foundation of all the changes in our laws, the sodomy laws, the abortion laws, everything else. I mean, he's there. His handprints are on everything that you.
You could have sex with a horse, an elephant, all right, and get away with it in about 10 states now. It used to be more, but now in the states where it's illegal, you either get fined $5,000, you may do a few months in jail. But a lot of these people, ultimately, they get out and research is done on them. And they're given apartments to talk about, what they were thinking when they were doing it, to justify the science that their forefathers put forth as light. See, his light is as darkness. His right hand is the right hand of falsehood.
With sexuality. From all these people, he was able to tell us, quote, the truth about ourselves, the truth about what we were really doing behind closed doors. And he lied about our fathers, my father's generation and grandfathers. He lied about them because he projected onto them what he himself was doing.
What he was struggling with.
Yes.
And your forefathers did the same damn thing too. But this is what I'm saying. You'll have particular so-called white people from within rebel, all right, against what other Edomites are doing. Okay? But ultimately, they have skeletons in their closet as well on other levels, man. Because this same witch will be the same one to justify, slavery or whatever the hell it may be. GMOs, who knows? All right? But the Lord put the spirit on particular Edomites' tongue to come up against their own selves, man.
It didn't take long for Kinsey to deceive the world with his fraudulent data, convincing us that we were sexually repressed and ignorant to the truth.
First, the media drank the Kool-Aid, and they were carefully taken care of by the Kinsey Institute to drink the Kool-Aid, okay. And then once they drank the Kool-Aid, the scientists, quote unquote, drank the Kool-Aid, and then the legislators drank the Kool-Aid, and then the lawmakers drank the Kool-Aid, and here we are.
Essentially, what Kinsey did was he changed our belief about ourselves. This change of belief naturally changed our behavior. Soon, Kinsey's ideas permeated everything in our society, from our legal system, reducing the penalty for sexual crimes and legalizing abortion, the media promoting his philosophy to the educational system, teaching children his views on sexuality. What's more, the pharmaceutical industry capitalized from the sexual revolution. We saw the emergence of STDs, sexual enhancers, and the morning after pill. The divorce rate soared along with sexual crime. As a people, we would never be the same again. Our innocence was lost forever. Ultimately, Kinsey's fraudulent data led to the legalization of pornography.
One of the virgins in college that read Kinsey and believed him was a guy named Hugh Hefner.
See that? This thing goes deep. Hugh Hefner, the founder of Playboy, who he's also a pedophile. He was R. Kelly on steroids with younger children. You see, and this is that wine, man. Let's get some scriptures. This is Habakkuk 2:4. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith. Yea, also because he transgressed by wine, and it's going to take some serious faith, because this man is about to put everything out on the forefront. He's going to come with all he has, and it's not going to be easy. Even the things that we see and start to see legalized and normalized, like before the Lord comes back, it's going to take a strong mind to understand that the Lord is going to come get us out of this, man. You already got brothers that wore the hell out. So we have to pray, brothers, because hey, the saints are wore out, but the spirit, all right, strengthens us, man. The hope of the Lord actually stopping this man. Because the Lord ain't gonna allow this forever, man. But wickedness has to play its role, man. Okay? So he transgressed by wine and is a proud man. And that he uses a lot of conjecture. Let's look up the word conjecture. Okay? All right. Inference form without proof or sufficient evidence. But he makes up the proof. The proof is based upon him. He's God. So because, when we tortured these children, they screamed, they like it. So this is the real way to do things. And it goes deeper and deeper. And he not only did this with sex, he did this with race. And this man has changed everyone's mind away from what reality is.